As to what happened this weekend, I talked to the president yesterday. I'm very proud of him as the commander-in-chief. We have the finest military in the world. I think we demonstrated that yet again. Why? Because we have the best people and the best equipment and the best weapons. But you also need a good, strong commander-in-chief. We've got the right combination now. We've got a strong commander-in-chief with a great military. President Trump does not want to get into war unless he has to use the military to defend our nation. And when he has to, he will. So what happened with the B-2s, they set back the Iran nuclear ambitions by years. We did things that Israel couldn't do. The Fordow site was a half a mile underground. These 3 B-2s delivered weapons that I think demolished that site for a long time to come. And that's things that were available to Israel that were not available to us. Why did we do it? Iran wants to do a couple things. Destroy the Jewish state. They write on the side of their missiles, "Death to Israel," and they mean it. This is a religious theocracy. It's not a democracy. The Ayatollah is a religious Nazi. He wants to purify Islam, go after Saudi Arabia, the Sunni side of Islam. He wants to dominate them. He's a Shiite. He wants to destroy the state of Israel, and he wants to come after us, Americans, because we're infidels in his eyes, and drive us out of the Mideast. We cannot let this theocracy prevail. Since 1979, the Iranian regime, in the hands of various Ayatollahs, has been the largest state sponsor of terrorism on the planet. And my goal is to make sure they either change their behavior or we change the regime. No boots on the ground. That's not necessary for the United States to get involved in a land war. But to our friends in Israel, keep doing what you're doing. No American would live this way. As a nation, we would not live under constant threat of ballistic missile attack. We would reject the proposition that we need to raise our children in bomb shelters. So as I said yesterday on Meet the Press, I talked to Prime Minister Netanyahu Sunday morning, and he wanted me to deliver a message to the American people that he's profoundly grateful to what we do as a nation to help Israel survive, but he wanted to make it clear that Israel's not going to live this way anymore, nor should they. If one ballistic missile came into America, we would wipe out those who sent it. And to expect Israel to live this way in perpetuity is not fair. It's not going to happen. So I expect Israel will continue to strike this regime until they do one of two things: renounce terrorism or change the people that would live in peace with Israel. Anybody who wants this regime not to change, that makes no sense to me. Why would you want the largest state sponsor of terrorism not to change? There's two ways for that change to occur. For the people in charge to change, renounce their terrorist ideology, or find new people that would live in peace with Israel, the United States, and the rest of the world. The Iranian people are not our enemy. They're a victim of this regime. And as President Trump said yesterday, why would we expect the Iranian people to live this way forever? I am hoping and praying that the Iranian people will have a chance of freedom that they haven't had since 1979, to be part of the Mideast in a peaceful way. And as long as the Ayatollah is in charge, I find it very hard for that to happen. So what happens next? I think Israel will continue to take military action against the regime that vows their destruction. We've set the nuclear ambitions of the Ayatollah back. We've degraded their nuclear program, but their desire to have a nuclear weapon to destroy Israel and come after us still exists. It's my hope one day that the people in charge of Iran will not want a nuclear weapon to attack their neighbors, will reject being the largest state sponsor of terrorism, and will chart a new path. One of the benefits of what happened yesterday is that I think Saudi Arabia and the Arab world saw in President Trump a decisive leader who stood up to the bully of the region, Iran, and the likelihood of Saudi Arabia recognizing Israel and ending the Arab-Israeli conflict went up. I think it went up fairly dramatically. People in the Mideast want to be behind a strong horse. And I think President Trump demonstrated resolve. He does not want conflict, but he's not a man to be trifled with. He gave the regime 60 days. They tapped him along, and the rest is history. To our friends in Israel, we stand with you. I pray for you. And I hope and pray there's one day soon where you don't have to live under the tyranny of the Ayatollah. And the same can be said of the Iranian people. One day soon, you will have a chance at a new life.
Are you aware of any specific actionable intel the president received from Israel prior to, and has he shared that with you after the fact or with anybody else?
No, I'm not aware of what Israel said to President Trump, but I am aware about the intel that we have in Congress. One thing people need to know, according to the IAEA, not me, in 2022, Iran had 95 pounds of highly enriched uranium. Now, 60% enriched uranium has no commercial purpose. To go from 60 to 90, which is weapons grade level, is weeks, not months. From 2022 to 2025, they went from 95 pounds to 900 pounds, enough to make about a dozen weapons. There's no reason to do that unless you want to make a nuclear weapon. They have one reactor in Iran. They haven't used 1 gram of their enrichment program to run that reactor. They get all their fuel from Russia. To run a nuclear reactor to produce power like we do up at Kiwi, where I live in Oconee County, is about 3.5% enrichment. There is no commercial purpose for 60%. That's right on the verge of a weapon. And I am convinced that they have been planning to enrich and eventually make a weapon. They were getting way too close. President Trump was bold. The mission was brilliant. It was necessary and most effective. And most importantly, it was effective. Bold, brilliant, necessary, and effective. Well done, Mr. President.
Are you concerned about fallout as they've threatened to retaliate against the U.S.?
Yeah, there's no military action without risk. We live in a world where you have to take risks sometimes to defend yourself. I refuse to live under the threat of a madman in Iran. There may be sleeper cells here, I don't know. They could attack our bases in the Mideast. They have the capability to do that. But the president was right to end or set back their nuclear ambitions because it was an existential threat to Israel and a major threat to us. See, I think if the Ayatollah had a nuclear weapon, he would use it against Israel because of his religious doctrine, that he's serious about death to Israel and death to America. He's different than Rocket Man and Putin in China. He's a religious fanatic, so you can't let religious fanatics have weapons of mass destruction. Now, what can they do? They could attack our bases. They could activate sleeper cells here. There are things they can do to hurt us. And what I would tell the American people, to deal with threats, you have to take risk at times. The risk of allowing this to go unchecked was far greater than the risk, in my view, long-term, of dealing with this threat. To our men and women in uniform, we're doing the best we can to protect you. But if somebody gets hurt or dies in the cause of freedom, you need to be able to tell their family that the military action was necessary. What they did made their country safe. So to anybody in harm's way, you're taking a risk to make your country safer. Because I believe if the Ayatollah had a nuclear weapon, he would use it against us. You're making the world a better place by standing up to this bully. If there is an attack at home or abroad against American interest, I am confident that will be the end of the regime. I am confident that we will destroy Iranian refining capability. They get all their money and all their revenue from oil and gas sales. They have 5 or 6 refineries out in the open. If they attack America in any way, at home or abroad, I would urge President Trump to put them out of the oil business, put them in the dark, and destroy this regime.
A lot of people on both sides of the aisle have called President Trump's actions this weekend unconstitutional. What's your response to that?
Well, before I got this job, I was a military lawyer. I was a defense attorney. I was a prosecutor, and for a short period of time, I was a judge. So I have said through the Obama years, the Clinton years, the Biden years, the Trump years, and the Bush years, that the War Powers Act passed during the Vietnam War is not worth the paper it's written on constitutionally. Why do I say that? You cannot have 535 commander-in-chiefs. The Constitution says only Congress can declare war. It doesn't say the commander-in-chief can't use the military unless Congress approves. We've declared war 5 times in the history of our nation. We've had hundreds of military engagements. Every commander-in-chief, from Clinton, going after Osama bin Laden, you had Obama in Libya, you've had a lot of military actions going after different targets, Reagan, Grenada was one example. Libya was used, military force used against Libya by multiple presidents without a declaration of war. A declaration of war can only be levied by the Congress. As a military lawyer, it is a legal principle. When you declare war, then insurance policies change. A declaration of war is a legal decision, has legal ramifications as well as use of force. I am convinced that every president that I have been involved with, from Clinton to Trump, Republican, Democrat, as commander-in-chief, they have the inherent authority to use the military to protect our nation. If you had brought this operation to the Congress, it would have been leaked in 5 minutes. It would have been a disaster. If you don't like what a president is doing, Congress has the authority under the Constitution to cut off funding. So the remedy that Congress has available when it comes to military force is to cut off funding for the operation. I have been consistent. I believe strongly that the Article II authority granted to the Commander-in-Chief under our Constitution allows military operations like what was done a couple of days ago, and they've been done hundreds of times in the history of the country, and that he is on sound constitutional footing. And the War Powers Act was a power grab by Congress that I think is unconstitutional.
Are you worried that this will get us into another endless war in the Middle East?
No, let me just tell you about endless wars. America is not invading other countries. We don't chant death to anybody. Your freedom comes with a cost sometimes. When my father went into World War II, when you signed up, it was for the duration. It wasn't for 2 years or 4 years, it's for the duration. Our country was focused on going to Tokyo and Berlin and defeating those who wished to change the world, the Nazis and the Japanese imperial regime. We've made mistakes in the Mideast, but it is not a mistake to stop a madman, a religious fanatic, from getting a nuclear weapon. It is not a mistake to give Israel the weapons they need to make sure they don't live in fear of being bombed for the rest of their lives. This is not going to be an endless war. What this will be is an end, eventually, I think, to a fanatical regime. And it can come one of two ways. They can reject their terrorism ways, or the Iranian people can replace them. It will be up to the Iranian people. But until there's a change in behavior from Iran, I am all in for helping Israel. And if they threaten us in any way, I'm all in for us going back after them. If one American is harmed at home or abroad at the hands of the Ayatollah, that's the end of the Ayatollah.